For most of my life, I believe love was something that happened quickly. The world teaches us that when the right person appears, everything becomes obvious immediately. Movies show two strangers meeting, and within moments their lives are forever connected. Songs describe instant recognition, like two souls finally discovering what they had always been missing. But real life rarely moves that way. Real love is quieter than people expect. It doesn't always arrive like lightning. Sometimes it appears slowly, patiently waiting until two people are ready to recognize what is forming between them. For a long time, I didn't understand that. I thought love had already passed me by. There were moments when I believed I had simply missed my chance. I watched people around me build their lives with someone beside them while I continued moving forward alone. It wasn't that I disliked my life. I learned to appreciate independence. I built routines, pursued goals, and filled my days with the responsibilities that kept me moving. But sometimes, usually during quiet evenings when the world slowed down, a certain thought would appear. The thought that maybe somewhere someone else was also wondering the same thing. Maybe someone else was moving through her own life, not knowing that our paths would eventually cross. At the time, that idea felt more like imagination than reality, because when you wait long enough without meeting the right person, you start adjusting your expectations. You convince yourself that love may not happen the way it does for others. You tell yourself that companionship is uncertain, and that life can still be meaningful without it. In many ways, that belief protected me. It prevented disappointment. If you stop expecting something, it becomes easier to accept its absence. But deep inside, there was always a quiet part in my heart that remained open. Not desperate, not impatient, just quietly open. I didn't know who she would be. I didn't know where she was living or what experiences were shaping her life at the same time mine was unfolding. But the idea that someone like her might exist somewhere continued to linger in the background of my thoughts. And so I kept living. Days turned into months, and months turned into years. My priorities shifted as life progressed. Ambitions changed, friendships evolved, and responsibilities grew heavier. I matured in ways I hadn't expected. I learned patience through challenges. I learned resilience through setbacks. And through all that growth, something important happened. My understanding of love changed. In the past, I thought love was about finding someone who made everything exciting, someone whose presence created constant emotion and intensity. But over time, I realized something deeper. Real love isn't about excitement. It's about alignment. Alignment happens when two people share similar values, even if their personalities are different. It appears when their perspectives on life complement each other instead of clashing. It appears when two people can sit together in silence without feeling uncomfortable, when conversations feel natural rather than forced, when disagreements don't feel like battles but opportunities to understand each other better. Those realizations didn't happen overnight. They developed slowly, shaped by experience and reflection. And as my understanding matured, something interesting happened. I stopped chasing the idea of love. Instead of searching for it constantly, I focused on building a life that felt meaningful on its own. I worked toward goals that mattered to me. I invested time in personal growth, learning from both success and failure. Without realizing it, I was preparing myself. Preparing for someone I had not yet met, because when two people eventually meet in a way that changes their lives, it is rarely coincidence alone. It is often the result of both individuals becoming ready at the same time. Readiness matters. If you meet the right person at the wrong moment, the connection may never fully develop. But when timing aligns with emotional maturity, something powerful can happen. Two lives that were moving independently suddenly begin moving together. That is how I felt the moment she entered my life. It wasn't dramatic. There was no overwhelming rush of emotion, no cinematic realization that everything had suddenly changed. Instead, it felt surprisingly calm in a way that made me pause. Conversations with her felt different from any I'd experienced before. They flowed naturally without effort. I didn't feel the need to impress her or present a carefully polished version of myself. I could simply be honest, and she responded with the same authenticity. Authenticity is rare. Many people hide behind expectations, afraid to reveal their true thoughts or feelings. But with her, honesty felt safe. There was no pressure to perform or pretend, just two people speaking openly. That openness created something powerful between us. Understanding. Understanding is what transforms attraction into connection. You can be attracted to many people throughout life. But understanding someone on a deeper level is far less common. It requires patience, attention, and genuine curiosity about another person's experiences. With her, understanding appeared quickly but naturally. We spoke about life, about the paths we'd taken, about the lessons that shaped who we had become. And as those conversations continued, I began noticing something. Our perspectives aligned in ways I hadn't expected. Not identical, but compatible. We valued similar things. Honesty, kindness, and respect were not just words to us, they were principles we tried to live by. We believed in listening before judging, in supporting each other's growth instead of limiting it. And as those shared values became clearer, something inside me began to shift. The quiet space in my heart that had remained open for so many years finally felt understood. For the first time, the idea of a shared future no longer felt like a distant possibility. It felt real. But what surprised me most was how peaceful that realization felt. There was no anxiety about whether things would work, no need to analyze every conversation or search for hidden meaning behind small gestures. Just a steady sense of certainty. Certainty doesn't mean perfection. We're both human. We have different habits, different ways of approaching certain situations. Sometimes we misunderstand each other. Sometimes we need time to think before responding. But those moments don't weaken the connection. They strengthen it. Because every time we communicate honestly, every time we listen carefully to each other's feelings, we build something stronger. Trust. Trust is the foundation of lasting love. Without trust, relationships become fragile. Doubt begins to grow in the spaces where communication should exist. But when trust is present, two people feel safe enough to share their true selves. Safety allows love to grow. It allows vulnerability. It allows people to express fears, hopes, and dreams without worrying about rejection. With her, that safety appeared naturally. And slowly I began realizing something I had never fully believed before. My heart had been waiting. Not waiting in a dramatic or impatient way, but quietly holding space for the right person to arrive at the right moment. All those years when I thought love might never appear were actually part of the journey that prepared me for her. Every experience shaped who I became. Every lesson taught me something about patience, resilience, and understanding. And without those lessons, I might not have recognized her when we finally met. Now, when I think about the years that passed before our paths crossed, I no longer see them as empty time. I see them as preparation. Preparation for a connection that feels deeper than anything I imagined before. A connection built not on excitement alone, but on respect, trust, and genuine understanding. Because sometimes the heart does wait. Not because love is absent, but because the right person simply hasn't arrived yet. And when they finally do, everything that once felt uncertain suddenly makes sense. The strange thing about waiting for something meaningful in life is that most of the time, you don't even realize you're waiting. Life moves forward with its usual rhythm. Days filled with responsibilities, work, conversations, small worries, and small victories. Months pass quietly, and gradually, those months turn into years. During that time, you become accustomed to your own routine, to the independence that shakes the way you think and live. At first, independence feels empowering. You learn how to rely on yourself, how to make decisions without needing anyone else's approval. You build a life that works according to your own schedule and priorities. There is freedom in that kind of living. But independence also teaches something deeper. It teaches you what solitude feels like. Solitude is not always loneliness. In many ways, solitude can be peaceful. It allows you to understand yourself more clearly. When there is no one else constantly influencing your thoughts, you begin to recognize your own values, your own ambitions, and the direction you want your life to take. During those years, I spent a lot of time understanding myself. I learned what truly mattered to me and what didn't. I learned which goals were driven by genuine passion and which ones were influenced by expectations from others. Slowly, I began shaping a life that felt authentic rather than performative. Authenticity became important to me. The world often encourages people to present idealized versions of themselves. Social expectations, cultural pressures, and even simple conversations sometimes make individuals feel like they must appear stronger, more successful, or more confident than they truly feel. But authenticity requires the courage to be honest. Honest about strengths, but also honest about weaknesses. Honest about dreams, but also about fears. It took time to reach that level of self-awareness. There are moments when I questioned my direction, moments when plans didn't unfold the way I expected them to. There were challenges that forced me to reconsider what success actually meant. For a long time, success felt connected to achievement alone. Career progress, financial stability, personal accomplishments. These were the markers I used to measure how well life was going. And while those achievements did bring a sense of satisfaction, something always felt slightly incomplete. Not empty, just incomplete. It was as if life had all the structure it needed but lacked a certain emotional dimension that could make the experience richer. At the time, I couldn't fully explain that feeling. I simply continued moving forward, assuming that perhaps everyone felt the same way at certain stages of life. Maybe fulfillment always required patience. Maybe certain things simply appeared later. Looking back now, I realize that my heart was quietly preparing itself. Not preparing for just anyone, preparing for the right person. Preparing for the right person doesn't always feel like preparation when you are living through it. It simply feels like life unfolding with its natural unpredictability. Every challenge teaches resilience, every mistake teaches humility, every success teaches gratitude. Gradually, these lessons shape the way you interact with others. They influence how you respond to conflict, how you handle responsibility, and how you treat people who enter your life. By the time she appeared, I had already changed in ways I hadn't fully noticed. The version of myself that met her was not the same person I'd been years earlier. I was calmer, more patient, less concerned with impressing people, and more interested in understanding them. That difference mattered, because when two people meet at the right moment in their personal development, something remarkable can happen. Instead of trying to prove their worth to each other, they simply share who they are. And that sharing creates something honest. The first conversations we had were surprisingly simple. There was no pressure to make them extraordinary. We spoke about ordinary things, daily routines, past experiences, random thoughts that appeared during quiet moments. But within those ordinary conversations, something meaningful was forming. Comfort. Comfort is one of the most underestimated qualities in relationships. Many people chase excitement, believing that constant emotional intensity is what makes love real. But excitement alone cannot sustain a connection for very long. Comfort is what allows love to grow steadily. When you feel comfortable with someone, you stop performing. You stop carefully calculating every word or gesture. You begin speaking naturally, revealing your thoughts without worrying about how they will be perceived. With her, that comfort appeared quickly. It wasn't forced or manufactured. It simply emerged from the way our conversations unfolded. She listened attentively, not just waiting for her turn to speak, but genuinely interested in what I was saying. That kind of attention is rare. In a world where people are constantly distracted by phones, schedules, and endless streams of information, genuine listening has become an uncommon skill. But she listened. And because she listened, I found myself wanting to understand her just as deeply. Understanding someone requires curiosity. Not the shallow curiosity people sometimes show when they ask questions out of politeness, but real curiosity. The desire to explore how another person thinks, what experiences shape them, and what dreams they carry for the future. Our conversations gradually moved beyond surface topics. We began sharing memories from childhood, discussing the challenges that had influenced our perspectives, and reflecting on the lessons life had taught us so far. Those discussions revealed something important. Our values aligned. Alignment doesn't mean two people think exactly the same way about everything. In fact, differences in personality often make relationships more interesting and dynamic. But alignment means that the core principles guiding both individuals are compatible. Honesty mattered to both of us. Respect mattered. Kindness mattered. We both believed that communication should remain open even during difficult moments. Those shared values created a strong foundation for everything that followed. Because when two people share similar principles, they approach life with a sense of unity, even when circumstances become complicated. Complications are inevitable. No relationship exists in a perfectly controlled environment. External pressures work stress. Family responsibilities, unexpected challenges can sometimes test the strength of any connection. But when two individuals share a foundation built on respect and honesty, those pressures become easier to navigate. Instead of turning against each other during difficult times, they turn toward each other. That shift is powerful. It transforms love from something fragile into something resilient. Resilience is what allows relationships to endure beyond the early stages of excitement. The beginning of any relationship often feels magical. Everything is new. Every conversation reveals something unexpected, and the possibilities of the future seem endless. But eventually, reality settles in. Daily responsibilities return. Schedules become busy again. Life continues with all its usual complexities. When that happens, some relationships lose their momentum. But strong relationships evolve. They move beyond novelty and develop deeper forms of connection, trust, partnership, and mutual support. With her, I began noticing those deeper elements appearing naturally. We encouraged each other's ambitions. We respected each other's independence. There was no sense of competition, no need to control each other's choices. Instead, there was cooperation. Cooperation means recognizing that both people are working toward a shared future while still honoring their individual paths. That balance is essential. Too much independence can create emotional distance, while too much dependence can limit personal growth. But when balance exists, both individuals feel free and supported at the same time. Freedom within a relationship allows love to flourish rather than feel restrictive, and that is what I felt with her. Not pressure, not expectation, just the quiet realization that the connection between us was becoming something meaningful. As time passed, I began thinking about something that once seemed unlikely. The possibility that the years I spent believing love might never arrive had actually been guiding me toward this moment. Every experience had prepared me in ways I didn't recognize at the time. Without those years of independence, I might not have understood the value of partnership. Without those moments of uncertainty, I might not have appreciated the stability that genuine trust provides. Now, when I reflect on everything that happened before she entered my life, I see it differently. Those years were not empty. They were necessary. They shaped who I became. They taught me patience. They taught me gratitude. And most importantly, they taught me how to recognize something real when it finally appeared. Because sometimes a heart waits longer than we expect. Not because love is absent, but because the right person hasn't yet arrived at the exact moment when both lives are ready to move forward together. When two lives begin to move closer to each other, there is often a moment when you realize something inside you has changed. Not in a dramatic way, not like a sudden shift that turns everything upside down. Instead, it feels like a quiet awareness slowly rising to the surface of your thoughts. You begin to notice that certain things matter more than they did before. Conversations become more meaningful. Time spent together feels different from time spent anywhere else. Even ordinary moments start carrying a kind of quiet significance that you hadn't paid attention to in the past. Before meeting someone who truly touches your heart, life can feel very structured. Days follow predictable routines. You wake up, focus on responsibilities, solve problems, and move forward with whatever plans you have created for yourself. There is purpose in that kind of life. But when someone meaningful enters the picture, purpose begins to expand. Suddenly, the future doesn't feel like a path you walk alone. It starts to feel like something that could be shared. At first, that thought can be surprising. For someone who has spent a long time building independence, the idea of sharing life with another person requires adjustment. Independence becomes part of your identity over the years. You learn to solve problems on your own, make decisions without consulting anyone, and carry both successes and disappointments privately. Letting someone into that space is not always easy. It requires trust. Trust does not appear instantly. It develops through small experiences that gradually reveal a person's character. Every honest conversation, every moment of patience, and every act of kindness contributes to that process. With her, those moments accumulated naturally. I began noticing how she approached situations that revealed who she truly was. The way she listened when someone spoke about something important. The way she remained calm during stressful situations, instead of reacting impulsively. These details might seem small, but they reveal a great deal about a person. Character is not defined by the grand moments people display publicly. It is defined by the quiet decisions they make when no one is watching. Watching her navigate everyday life showed me something reassuring. She carried a sense of thoughtfulness in everything she did. Thoughtfulness is rare. Many people move quickly through life, reacting to circumstances without taking time to consider how their actions affect others. But thoughtful people pause before responding. They listen carefully, reflect on what they have heard, and choose their words with care. That quality made conversations with her feel different. Our discussions were not rushed. We spoke openly about ideas, experiences, and perspectives without feeling the need to impress each other. There was honesty in the way we communicated. Honesty is essential for any meaningful relationship. Without honesty, connections remain superficial. People hide their true thoughts, fearing that vulnerability might create misunderstanding or rejection. But when honesty becomes the foundation of communication, something deeper emerges. Clarity. Clarity allows two people to see each other as they truly are, rather than through idealized expectations. And when clarity reveals that the person beside you is someone you respect and admire, the connection becomes stronger. Respect plays a powerful role in love. Attraction may bring two people together initially, but respect is what sustains the relationship as time passes. When you respect someone, you value their opinions even when they differ from your own. You recognize their individuality rather than trying to reshape them into something else. Respect creates balance. Balance allows both individuals to grow without feeling restricted by the relationship. This idea became increasingly important as our connection developed. Neither of us wanted to lose our sense of self. We both had ambitions, interests, and personal goals that shaped the direction of our lives. But instead of those differences creating distance, they created inspiration. We encouraged each other. Encouragement is one of the most powerful forms of support people can offer within a relationship. When someone believes in your abilities, it strengthens your confidence. It reminds you that the dreams you carry are worth pursuing. With her, encouragement came naturally. She celebrated my successes without jealousy and supported my efforts during moments when progress felt slow, and I found myself wanting to offer the same support in return. That mutual encouragement created a sense of partnership. Partnership is different from dependency. Dependency suggests that one person relies entirely on the other for stability. But partnership means two individuals walking side by side, sharing responsibility and supporting each other while still maintaining their own strength. This balance allowed our connection to grow without pressure. There was no urgency to define everything immediately. We allowed time to shape the relationship naturally. Time reveals truth. When people spend enough time together, their genuine personalities emerge. The small habits, the ways they handle frustration, the patience they show during difficult conversations. These elements gradually become visible. Through time, I saw how she approached challenges. Life inevitably brings difficult moments. Plans change, unexpected problems appear, and emotions sometimes become complicated. During those moments, people reveal the depth of their character. With her, difficulty did not create distance. Instead, it revealed resilience. Resilience is the ability to remain steady when circumstances become uncertain. It means facing problems with determination rather than avoiding them. Watching her handle challenges with calm strength made me admire her even more. Admiration is another essential ingredient in lasting love. When you admire someone, you value the qualities that define who they are. You appreciate their intelligence, their kindness, their courage, and their ability to navigate life's complexities. Admiration deepens emotional connection. It transforms affection into something more meaningful. As our relationship continued to develop, I realized something important about the years I had spent waiting. Those years were not wasted. At one time, I believed that time had simply passed without bringing the connection I hoped for. But now I understood that every experience during those years had shaped my perspective. Without those experiences, I might not have recognized the value of what was happening between us. Life teaches patience through waiting. Patience is difficult to learn, but it is necessary for appreciating meaningful moments when they finally appear. If everything happened instantly, we might not understand its significance. But when something arrives after years of uncertainty, it carries a deeper meaning. That was the feeling I began to recognize as our relationship grew stronger. It wasn't just happiness. It was gratitude. Gratitude for the journey that led to this moment. Gratitude for the person who had entered my life and shown me that love could feel calm, supportive, and genuine at the same time. As the days passed, the idea that once seemed distant began to feel increasingly real. The idea that two lives, which had traveled separate paths for so many years, were now slowly merging into one shared direction. Not through dramatic declarations, but through everyday choices. Choosing to listen carefully, choosing to communicate honestly, choosing to respect each other's individuality while building something meaningful together. Those choices strengthened the connection between us. They created trust, and trust allowed the relationship to deepen without fear. Looking back now, I can see that the heart sometimes understands things before the mind fully realizes them. Somewhere deep inside, my heart had been waiting not for perfection, but for someone whose presence felt right in ways that words alone could never fully explain. And when that person finally appeared, the years of waiting suddenly made sense, because the heart had not been waiting in vain. It had simply been waiting for her. As time continued to move forward, Something began to change in the way I looked at the future. Before she came into my life, the future always felt like a road I had to build by myself. Every decision, every plan, every risk belonged only to me. I had grown used to that feeling. It wasn't something that made me unhappy, but it did create a kind of quiet distance between what I had and what I had sometimes imagined life could become. For many years, I believed independence was the ultimate strength a person could have. Being able to stand on your own, make your own choices, and face your own challenges felt like the definition of maturity. And in many ways, it was. Learning to depend on yourself teaches responsibility and discipline. But there is another side to independence that people rarely talk about. When someone spends too much time walking alone, they begin to believe that every path must always be walked that way. That belief becomes comfortable. You stop expecting anyone to appear beside you. You stop imagining what life would feel like if someone else shared the weight of the journey. Instead, you simply keep moving forward, focusing on the next goal, the next responsibility, the next day. That was how my life had been for a long time. Everything had its place. My days had structure. My thoughts were focused on progress, stability, and growth. I was moving forward in the way I believed life required. But meeting her slowly introduced a different perspective. It showed me that strength doesn't disappear when two people share a path. Sometimes it becomes stronger. At first, I didn't even realize how much my thinking had begun to change. It happened gradually through the conversations we shared and the moments we experienced together. When someone enters your life with genuine sincerity, their presence naturally begins to influence the way you see things. She didn't try to change me. That was one of the things I respected most about her. There was no pressure to become someone else. She didn't expect me to reshape my personality or abandon the things that mattered to me. Instead, she accepted who I was while encouraging me to continue growing. That kind of acceptance is powerful. Many relationships struggle because people try to transform each other. They believe love requires molding someone into the image they prefer. But real love doesn't demand transformation. It encourages growth. Growth happens when someone supports the best parts of who you already are. It means recognizing potential and helping it develop without forcing it into a rigid direction. That was what I felt with her. She saw my strengths but also understood my doubts. She recognized the things I cared deeply about and respected the effort I had put into building my life. At the same time, she brought her own strength into the connection. She had her own experiences, her own lessons learned from life, and her own ambitions that shaped the way she moved forward. Listening to her talk about those experiences revealed something important. She understood life in a thoughtful way. Thoughtfulness is not always easy to notice immediately. It reveals itself through patience, through the way someone approaches difficult situations, and through the way they treat people around them. I noticed it when she spoke about the people in her life. She spoke with appreciation rather than complaint. She remembered small details about the people she cared about, which showed how attentive she was to others. That attentiveness created a feeling of warmth in our conversations. They made me realize how rare genuine kindness can be in the world. Kindness often seems simple on the surface, but it requires effort. It means choosing compassion when impatience might feel easier. It means responding with understanding even when someone else is having a difficult day. Those choices reveal character. And character is what makes a relationship meaningful. As our connection continued growing, I began to notice that the time we spent together felt different from the rest of my day. Hours that might normally pass without much thought suddenly carried significance. A simple walk could become a long conversation about dreams and memories. A quiet evening could turn into a moment of reflection about the paths our lives had taken before meeting. Those moments didn't feel extraordinary from the outside, but to us they meant everything, because within those conversations we were slowly learning who we really were. Learning someone deeply requires patience. People reveal themselves gradually. At first they share the parts of their personality that feel comfortable and familiar, but as trust grows, deeper thoughts and experiences begin to appear. With her, that process felt natural. There was never a sense that we had to rush through anything. Instead, every conversation felt like another piece of a larger story slowly unfolding. That story included both joy and honesty. We spoke about the good moments life had given us, but we also talked about the difficult ones, the challenges that shaped our perspectives, the mistakes that taught us important lessons, and the moments when we questioned our direction. Those discussions created a level of understanding that is hard to describe. When two people share their experiences openly, they begin to see each other beyond surface impressions. They understand not only what the other person has achieved, but also what they have endured. That understanding creates empathy. Empathy strengthens emotional connection because it allows people to see the world through each other's eyes. With empathy comes patience. Patience allows two people to navigate misunderstandings without losing respect for each other. It allows them to listen carefully before reacting, to consider the other person's perspective even when emotions feel strong. I realized that patience was one of the most important qualities she carried. Even when conversations touched on sensitive topics, she remained thoughtful in the way she expressed herself. She didn't rush to conclusions or dismiss ideas simply because they were different from her own. Instead, she asked questions. Questions show curiosity. And curiosity is the foundation of understanding. When someone truly wants to understand you, they take the time to ask about your thoughts, your feelings, and the experiences that shaped who you are. The curiosity made our connection feel alive. It meant we were always learning something new about each other. Over time, the relationship began to feel less like two separate lives intersecting and more like two paths gradually merging. The future started to look different, not in a way that erased the independence we both valued, but in a way that suggested our individual journeys could move forward together. That realization was both exciting and humbling. Exciting because it opened possibilities I had once stopped imagining. Humbling because it reminded me how unpredictable life can be. For years, I had believed that love might never arrive in the way people often describe. I had accepted that possibility and built my life around it. But life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Sometimes the things we quietly hope for appear when we have almost forgotten to look for them. And when they appear, they change everything, not by disrupting our lives, but by enriching them. Looking at her, I realized something that once seemed impossible. My heart had waited longer than I ever expected. But that waiting had not been empty. It had been preparing me to recognize something real when it finally appeared. Because when the right person enters your life, you don't feel overwhelmed by uncertainty. Instead, you feel a quiet sense of clarity. A feeling that the long journey you walked alone was leading you toward this moment all along. And in that moment, you understand something simple but powerful. The heart sometimes waits a lifetime. Not because love is impossible, but because the right person is worth the wait.